Good afternoon, everybody. So sorry for the slight delay. Delighted that you are joining us for the fifth in our virtual panel series, talking about our plan for jobs. Now, you've probably heard me tirelessly say that my overwhelming economic priority is to protect, support, and create as many jobs as possible and provide opportunities for as many people as possible, particularly at this very difficult time. Now, that's why we've invested over £280 billion in our plan for jobs. That contains a number of signature interventions, apprenticeships, traineeships, the Kickstart scheme, and of course, giving our fantastic work coaches in job centres the tools and resources they need. Now, this plan for jobs is only going to work because we rely on the brilliant efforts of people all around the country to help deliver it. And I'm delighted that today we are joined by a snapshot of some of those brilliant people who have been working tirelessly over the past year to help provide that support and opportunity to people at this difficult time, particularly in National Apprenticeships Week. It's great to bring all this cast of characters together. So I'm sure you're going to be excited to hear from them. I certainly am. And without further ado, let me get our panel to introduce themselves. So Michelle, starting with you.
I'm Michelle. I work at Luton Job Centre and I'm a work coach, specifically dealing with 18 to 24-year-olds. And so that's what I do.
Brilliant. Thanks, Michelle. And people who have been tuning into our panels regularly will remember we had Matlin on a few weeks ago, who was one of the great Kickstarters, talking about his experience at Luton FC. And he talked about his work coach, Michelle, who had helped him get that role. And delighted, Michelle, that you can be with us today. Ewan, over to you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Ewan, founder and CEO of Multiverse. We are one of the fastest growing startups in Europe, and we're building an outstanding alternative to university and to corporate training through apprenticeships. So basically, we recruit, train and reskill apprentices in careers across tech and professional services, while also giving them access to our apprentice community.
Brilliant. Thank you, Ewan. Congratulations on your recent fundraising. Delighted to hear how well the company is doing. Biddy.
Hi, good afternoon. So my role is I work for the JGA Group, which is a private sector provider of training for traineeships, apprenticeships and other development programs across a wide variety of skills. And my role there is head of skills, leading on the curriculum design aspects, engaging with employers, and really a collaboration of lots of different things across our own business functions, teams, and the local community, local authorities, etc. And I'm also leading on the introduction with JGA of the Level 3 Employability Practitioner qualification, in line with the Institute of Employability Practitioners and the Good Employability Company.
Brilliant, Biddy, thanks. And we were talking earlier, but you also received, your organisation received a Training Provider of the Year award last year as well.
Yes, we did, through the BAME apprenticeship scheme. And last week, Chancellor, we received the West London Business Awards for Education Training Provider and also Apprentice of the Year with Lily Rose John.
Brilliant, fantastic. Well, we're delighted to have you. And lastly, over to you, James.
Yeah, hi, I'm James. I run our family retail business. So we've got 2,100 shops all around the country doing shoe repairs and dry cleaning and photo and things like that. And over 10% of my colleagues we first met when they were in prison. So we're very interested in employing people who come from all different areas of the country and all different types of experience.
Brilliant. And James, you didn't mention, I mean, everyone will know your name, but what are those household brands that we'll all be familiar with that you're responsible for?
So we've got Timpson, Max Spielman, the photo shops, Snappy Snaps, another photo business, Johnson's the cleaners and Jeeves of Belgravia. And we've got a lot of locksmith vans, colleagues in locksmith vans running around, getting people into their houses when they've been locked out.
Brilliant. All the essentials of everyday life. Fantastic.
We also have 4 pubs. When you talk about essentials, we also have 4 pubs. So that's another conversation.
Yes. Well, yeah, exactly. Well, we're desperate to be back in those. Right. Good. Well, let's crack on. I should have said at the beginning, but you guys watching are all well trained by now. Do whatever social media you're on, fling in your questions. They'll pop up here and I will try and get through as many of them as possible with our panel. Right. We've got one in. This is a good general one for everyone. What advice would you give to someone currently thinking about embarking on a new career? James, why don't we start with you?
So I think the first thing to do is to look in the organisation you're already in for a new career. It's amazing how many of my colleagues started off in reception or working in a shop and now do very senior jobs. And probably, I would say 98% of my colleagues in this who sort of run the business all started off working in the shop serving customers. So look in the organisation you're in. And the other is do your research. Speak to people who do the job that you think you're doing. So before you jump, do your research, don't make a mistake.
Excellent, very helpful. Biddy, how about you?
Totally agree with what James has said there, and definitely look at your current skill set. You know, what skills you would like to have to develop further and what you want to build on, and list all those things that you ever wanted to do. And now you might have that opportunity to actually progress onto something like maybe you'd always wanted to do but not managed to do.
Excellent. Michelle, you've been doing this for almost a decade, literally coaching and helping people into work. I mean, what are your top bits of advice for those thinking about that new career?
Exactly what James and Biddy said, but on top of that, sort of look at your transferable skills. What have you done in the past? How can they be transferred into that new opportunity? There's a fantastic National Career Service have got a fantastic site that does job profiles, and it will tell you sort of like every single job that you can think of. You look for the sector and it will go through the different roles in that sector, give you advice on salaries, qualifications, how you could gain those qualifications. So that's a fantastic site for young people or anybody to look at, to be honest, if they're changing career, if they want to go into a new career.
Something new. Great. Thanks for that tip. And Ewan?
Yeah, I think, look, echoing what people said, but it may seem at the moment there's not a lot to be optimistic about given the economic challenges and the global pandemic, but there are opportunities people can pursue. I mean, I think there are about 100,000 unfilled data roles at the moment, and there are lots of organizations offering people the chance to actually retrain or reskill with their current employer or if they're out of work. And I mean, I'd strongly advocate anyone looking to change career, as James suggested, to explore an apprenticeship. And the fact is, we're all going to need to embark on a new career at various points in this journey at the moment. Most of us are going to have multiple different careers. I think come 2030, 85% of the jobs people are doing don't even exist today. So we're all going to have to reskill. And the good news is employers are really focused on this. They're investing in it more than ever and increasingly making it easier for people to transition.
Yeah. You mentioned apprenticeships, Ewan, actually it's helpful because David Trigg has sent a question in and he's asked about whether you would recommend or people recommend apprenticeships over higher education and what to think about. Now, obviously, that's something that, as a government and as a society, we've been trying to improve the emphasis and quality of apprenticeships over the past several years. You're on the coalface of that. I mean, what would you say to David about, that young person who's weighing up, do I go to university? Do I do an apprenticeship? I've heard about these things. What would you say to that person?
I think it's particularly important you don't allow yourself to be set on one path because you feel it's what you're expected to do rather than what you actually want. There's not one route to success. Our apprentices work at places like Google, Facebook, Morgan Stanley, Unilever, a whole range of great startups. And we're actually going to be creating more than 200 jobs this year at Multiverse and are on track to deliver over 4,000 additional apprenticeships at some of the world's most exciting companies. And it's a different type of learning. It's applied learning. It's about problem solving in the workplace. And lots of people find that they actually thrive when approaching learning in that manner in a way that they don't in an academic environment. And so I think it's really breaking those perceptions and not allowing ourselves to do something just because we feel it's the thing we're being pushed to do. The good news is schools are getting a lot better at signposting people more accurately to multiple destinations. I think the one thing we'd really ask the government to look at is what could be done with league tables so that we're not just focusing on university destinations as the thing that we sort of prize above everything else.
Yeah, no, that's a fair challenge. I think you're right. Look, we've got to make sure that the perception of apprenticeships is strong, right? People realize that they are an incredibly high quality option that is just a good alternative to university. It's not something lesser. It is just a different way to get the skills you need to succeed in life. And as you brilliantly set out, lots of different companies offer these things. I mean, you think when you're young, you think about an apprentice being in a workshop doing something. Actually, as you said, you can now do apprenticeships in so many different industries that you shouldn't limit yourself in terms of your possibilities. I mean, Biddy, you must see people who have come through those different routes through your training, and obviously, you can see why it works. What would you say to someone thinking about university, apprenticeship, what might work for them?
Oh, absolutely. Another pathway into employment. Myself, my personal experience of being a tri-migrant into the United Kingdom started off as an apprentice with Glaxo. So the opportunity I had there of working in research and development and quality control certainly set me up with that foundational skill set and knowledge to progress through a pathway of different career sets, really. So for any young person, yes, please look beyond that immediate approach, look wider and see what else is out there, the digital, the pharmaceuticals, any industry that you're keen to look at, research. And, the traineeships, the apprenticeships, the Kickstarts are all routes into those pathways.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you, Biddy. And we've got a question here from Ibrahim, which is, I think, a good general question, but I'll start with James and Michelle. He's asking, what are the obstacles that you faced in your career and how did you overcome it? And I guess more generally, both Michelle and James, you've seen people who have overcome difficulties in their life and found a way to make something positive out of that and get into work as a result. I mean, what would your kind of reflections on overcoming adversity and change and moving into work be?
Well, I think work can be a very good power to help people change and to help people get to where they wanted to be after they've had some wobbles. I mean, in our business, very few people leave school wanting to work as a shoe repairer, sadly. In fact, I'm probably the only one. But we find lots of people who leave prison, lots of people who leave the armed forces who are looking for a new career. We have lots of people who've been to 6, 7, 10, 15 different jobs before, but they find us and we find them. And what we find is personality and passion is absolutely vital. And that's what we're looking for, rather than people who have a bit of a checkered CV. We want people who get to that point in life where they've got the passion and our values are shared. So there's one of the things that I think is really important that people consider when they're looking for work is, are their values aligned with the values of the organisation they're hoping to work for? And in our case, we like giving people a second chance because from our experience, they are often the best colleagues we can find. Bizarrely, people who join us from prison are super hard workers, very reliable, get promoted very, very quickly. And it just goes to show, as an employer, don't just look at a CV, look at the personality and find their passion.
I think that's an excellent point. Actually, the message is for employers as well as people themselves, right? Actually, as you said, your company amazingly does, provides people with that second opportunity and is rewarded with enormous loyalty and hard work from those people. So it wins for everyone. I mean, Michelle, again, you're dealing with a lot of people who are overcoming obstacles and adversity. What would your reflections and advice be?
I think basically have a look at what's out there and like James has said, passion in what you do. Look at what you really enjoy. Find something that you really, really enjoy, that you know that you would flourish doing, and go with it and think outside the box. Employers want people who want to work for them. So approach those employers directly if you have to, sort of make what we call speculative approaches. Find out what they require and see where you go. Because I think, sometimes the normal route isn't always the route that's going to go best. If you go in there, if you get a CV and a cover letter into an employer before they've advertised a position, and you can go have a route. You can put your expression of interest in there, so they know that you're looking for work, and they want people who want to work for them.
Yeah.
Today, if you're passionate about working for a company, try and approach them directly.
I think hustle a bit. I think
do a bit, because at the end of the day, they do want people who are passionate. But think about what you want to do and go for it.
Great. I mean, you just reflecting before we move on your personal experience. Obviously, you're building a growing company that comes with lots of obstacles, setbacks. how have you overcome some of those challenges on your journey in building, what is now an incredibly successful and fast-growing company? Any particular examples that you've experienced where you've had to overcome something that didn't go your way and figured out how to get through it?
I think one of them is at the start, you're really trying to establish credibility. You're sort of telling people about this thing that you're building. And, we were talking about the kind of apprenticeships we can deliver without having any evidence yet that we could do that. And so I think you have to be very clear on what your value proposition is. I think you have to be very clear about why it's different from what else is happening. And I think you need a very clear vision around the purpose behind what you're building. And I think both Michelle and James touched on it. James mentioned values. It's so important. Most people want to work for an organization that in some way reflects their values. And we're lucky enough now that companies are taking this incredibly seriously. I mean, you have the Business Roundtable of CEOs in the US last year. Some of the world's biggest CEOs say, we are not just about shareholder value anymore. We've also got to do good for society. And that is an incredibly exciting thing because employers are actively holding themselves accountable to how they hire people, who they hire, how they train people, and who they train. And that should lead to far more opportunities. And so I think that will help. I also think it's good that investors are actively seeking to back people who are not from the same collection of backgrounds and have their own personal stories that are quite different and resonate with people that they could be selling to and building businesses with. So that's a great thing.
Yeah, no, it's great that values are a bigger part of the conversation. So the next couple of questions are similar, and I think let's see. I mean, Michelle, there's definitely one for you and maybe one for me. We've got a question from Ben Glaze at the Mirror. Thanks for joining us, Ben. Who's asking about how damaging I believe the pandemic has been for the life chances of youngsters in the country, and then a question from Joe Wright about young people asking about how much interest there is from young people about the Kickstart program and are they applying? I mean, maybe I'll have a first bash and then hand over to Michelle. I mean, Ben, what I've always said, actually, young people we know are the ones that are most affected by what's happening economically. They disproportionately work in the sectors that are being closed down, that are not able to open and fully function. The ones that are leaving the labour or leaving college or university for the first time or entering a really difficult labour market. And we know from the evidence that young people are more likely to be furloughed. So when you put all of that together, it's not great for young people. That's why we created the Kickstart scheme, which is quite a strong intervention from the government to fully fund these what I hope and believe are high quality job opportunities for young people who are at risk of becoming unemployed, and they remain at the forefront of my mind. And maybe I'll turn over to Michelle, who's having to deliver that on the ground, and she can hopefully confirm that that's what's actually happening. But Michelle, I mean, what do you think about Kickstart and young people and how it's working?
Yeah, it's Kickstart. I believe is a good thing for the young people. If I can just go back to the initial about how it's affected our young people. If I tell you my caseload before the pandemic was somewhere around 86, it's now over 400. That tells you I deal with 18 to 24-year-olds, so it tells you the impact there. And Kickstart come along, and there is a lot of interest in Kickstart. And when the young people realise the type of jobs that are available, they are high quality jobs. They're of interest, and we're getting quite a few people apply for those positions, and there's more and more coming on day by day. So it is a fantastic opportunity for the young people to get themselves into a work placement, maybe a long-term job role, who knows, but it's a great foothold in the door for these young people, and I think it's hopefully going to be an amazing success.
Yeah, well, thanks for everything you're doing, Michelle. And I very much, when we announced the scheme, I said very specifically, we didn't want this generation to be a generation scarred by coronavirus. We want to make them the Kickstart generation. And that's why the work you're doing is so vital. Moving on, we've got a question from one of our attendees, Amit Karia, who's asking, how do you best help retrain people who have been made redundant or are making a mid-career switch? I guess, James, this is something you do, right? Because you're taking people in a different stage of their life. And it'd be interesting to hear how you approach that in the training that you give them at that juncture.
So the way we do it is very much based in our shops. So the training is practical training, and you work alongside a colleague who's trained to train you. So in our business, what's really important is when you apply to us for a job, your CV is great, but all we're interested in is your name and phone number, because we'll interview anybody who applies to us for a job, because we're looking for the personality and the passion. And what we find is when we pick the right personality, they love learning the practical skills, and then they start understanding our culture, which is businesses and companies and organizations. You have to learn skills, but you also need to understand the culture within which you will be working. And then we just give people as much responsibility as fast as we can. So one of the things we love to do, for example, we recruit someone from prison, they start working for us tomorrow. The first thing they do is they take the cash to the bank, we trust them, and then as soon as we can, we let them run a shop on their own for a day. So we like to push people really fast, and we're happy for them to make mistakes, but we want them to succeed by learning the skills and learning the culture.
And it's inspiring to hear, James, actually. That's amazing on the building trust so early in that relationship. Biddy, I mean, how do you find getting people from one career to another career, mid-career? Someone's lost their job, they want to maybe move to a different industry. They might work in, for example, travel at the moment is difficult, hospitality is difficult, and they want to find a different opportunity. How do you help them with that, or how do you approach that?
Yeah, I mean, it's like approaching a souffle. You know, you need to get the mix right. You know, the menu choice needs to be wide. So, you know, encouraging that self-awareness, the social awareness, the relationship, the self-management, the responsible, ethical decision-making, and recognizing through our conversations and dialogues that hidden talent that perhaps people don't talk about because they've been volunteering, and they don't recognize that actually brings a very enriched thing. We're very fortunate that we have lots of associates that work with us from industry who want to give back to their professions and build those professions for the future. And they come in and they support that training. Now, some have come in and said, this is what we want to do for the future. And the Education Training Foundation have provided a route into that employment with training and qualification support for us. So, you know, it's a right souffle mix of choice of menu, really.
Brilliant. I think I'm better that people have your souffle than mine, judging by my skills, but that's great. A great analogy. We're almost out of time, so I'm going to do one quick one for you, and then we'll wrap up with something for all of you, because I think this is an interesting question. You might have a thought on it, which is Adam's asking about apprenticeships at smaller companies, and you know, do they still work at smaller companies? What support is there for smaller companies? I don't know if your organisation, you know, works with very small companies. I'd say from a government perspective, what we do is provide a cash incentive, Adam, to small companies of up to £2,000 at the moment to take on a new apprentice to help with some of the costs. And we also pay for about 95% of the training costs for the apprentice. So the business only has to put 5% in, government will pay 95% and give you a £2,000 cash bonus to try and encourage people to do that. And that will make a difference to small companies. But Ewan, do you have a quick thought on that? And then we'll wrap up with something for everyone.
And look, there are some good incentives there. You shared some of them. The other thing is, for an apprentice under the age of 24, you don't need to pay national insurance contributions. Again, that's a significant saving. And if you look at it with small businesses, we've actually been working with a lot of big levy payers who aren't spending all of their apprenticeship levy to help them transfer their underspend on the levy to small businesses directly, so they don't need to make any contribution towards the training costs for those apprenticeships, because small businesses are one of the best places you can get an apprenticeship start at. You can get promoted very quickly, you can progress incredibly quickly, you're exposed to lots of different things. And we do a huge amount with startups. Actually, it's probably not talked about enough just how reliant a lot of early stage tech startups are at the moment on apprentice talent, which is a great thing.
Yeah. No, that's actually, you're absolutely right. And that's one of the changes that we made recently to try and improve how easy it was for large companies that pay the apprenticeship levy, as you said, to transfer that money to their supply chain, smaller companies. So I've seen some nods, which is good to know that policy change is hopefully going to help people. There will also be a website which is a matching function if you don't all benefit from Ewan's help. But that is, I'm glad that's making a difference. Right, so we're almost out of time. The last question, I'm going to kind of combine two for all of you, from a mix of Ben and Suzanne, who are both watching, who are asking a similar question. They want to know, what are the most sought after skills by employers? You know, what are the top 3 skills? I mean, we've talked about values and passion and other things, but you know, what are some of the skills or work habits that employers most are interested in? And combined with that, has coronavirus changed that slightly or not? And, there's something new that people are looking for. So that's the last question for all of you. Michelle, why don't we start with you?
It's difficult to say whether that's changed. I think the skills that the companies are looking for, sometimes they need some experience, but for our young people, it's like think outside the box. Don't necessarily think of that experience in terms of what you've gained in the workplace, because there's a raft of ways you can have gained that experience. You could have done it through volunteering. It could have been, through something you've done at school, a project or something like that. So think outside the box when they're looking for the skills and find out where you can get the skills. But I think it's an important thing. Whether their skills have changed, I wouldn't like to say too much, but I think definitely for young people, when they're looking at vacancies, look at what the skills the employers are looking for, and think about where you've gained those skills.
Yeah, no, it's brilliant. So that adaptability, as you mentioned, and that ability to be flexible is important, but also, you can draw on your experience from lots of different parts of your life, not just from your work when you're trying to present yourself to employer. Really helpful. Biddy, okay, from you, top 3 skills that you think people are looking for nowadays or will be looking for. Oh, Biddy, you're on mute. There we go.
Sorry. So definitely curiosity, because that drives inquiry, and your passion. The typical ones that have already been sort of intimated there, the time management, those sorts of things, but looking at it from different perspectives. So being able to see one thing from a different perspective is very good, because that will drive that curiosity as well.
Fantastic. Ewan?
I think one thing that the pandemic has definitely done is it's just pushed the need for digital transformation. And so many companies are being gripped by this at the moment. So data skills, tech skills, project management skills, product management skills, we're seeing a massive increase in demand for those. But then at the same time, every company is very conscious of how important the human skills are that won't easily be automated. And empathy is without question one of the ones that people most often look for. Your ability to kind of understand how others are feeling and coping, conscientiousness, interpersonal skills, those things remain really important. And I think it was a really important point Michelle made about people not underestimating or playing down the things they're good at, right? Having, raising a family or tutoring your siblings or building your own website in your spare time. These are all evidence of great skills that people often don't talk about enough in interview scenarios.
Absolutely right. And that was a nice contrast in the digital and the human. I remember when I was applying to graduate school in the US, I think this concept of emotional intelligence and the EQ as well as your IQ was a big part of the application process. And I think that's absolutely right. And then lastly, James, I mean, you are hiring people all the time. What is it you are looking for?
We're looking for all the things that have been mentioned here, and the flexibility is for us is really important, because lots of our colleagues work in different shops all the time. But the one thing I would like to add in, and this is something that's been important to us for many years, is kindness. Being kind to each other, to our colleagues, to our customers, and a culture of kindness, I think, is something we can all work on as we come out of COVID. So the country is economically strong, but also that little bit kinder too.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And I think you're spot on. I remember one of the early bits of coronavirus and one of the many press conferences that we were all doing. I think I spoke about something similar as well, right? It's a time for us to demonstrate those acts of kindness towards each other at a time of difficulty for many of us. But look, this is amazing that we're already out of time, which is a great shame. But thank you to everyone for joining us, but a special thanks to our brilliant panel. It is a difficult time, as we all know, but I think because of people like Michelle, Biddy, James and Ewan, there are millions of people who can see hope and opportunity in the future. And so I'm enormously grateful to all of you for the fantastic work that you are doing, providing people with that springboard to a better future for themselves. It's going to be ever more vital in the weeks and months ahead. And I think people would have got a snapshot of how much is going on and what is out there for them. And hopefully they will also come away from this, as I have, with renewed confidence and positivity about our future. So thanks all. Take care.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Rishi.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.